And I'll start with item 1. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Councillor Colin Ellsbury and Richie Prendergast.
Thank you very much.
That's Mike Alexander.
Pardon?
That's Mike Alexander.
Right, item number 2, declarations of interest. Members of the Fire and Rescue Authority are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare both orally and in writing any personal and or prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 2000. 2000. I'll get it right in a minute. The Fire and Rescue Authority standing orders and the members' code of conduct. Sorry about that, that was a very lengthy bit. Have anybody got anything to? No, can't see anybody? No? No? Right, I'll move on to item number 3, which is the chairman's announcements, and I have got nothing to report or announce. So we'll move on now to item 4, receive the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on Monday, July. Has anybody got any issues they want to raise on these minutes?
No.
No? No? Well, I'll move these minutes. And I'll, can somebody second these minutes?
I can second you.
Oh, thank you very much. Right, we'll move on now to item number 5, which is a report to review key performance indicators and update report on publication of annual benefit statement. And I believe Catherine Black is delivering this.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So the tables on Appendix 1, page 13, and pages 14, 15 and 16 show our performance against the agreed service level agreements that we hold with South Wales Fire and Rescue Service. We monitor our performance against certain criteria of work which are listed on the left-hand side monthly. So the tables show that we are hitting our performance targets. In most areas, we are hitting all our service levels agreements and delivering each piece of work within agreed service levels agreements. So we continue to work closely with the pensions team at South Wales Fire and Rescue Service on priorities for them and for us, and we work closely with them around individuals and when those individuals are expecting figures from us. So we'll continue to do that. We have a dedicated email account between the two of us, which allows us to monitor the work coming into the section and then allocate resource accordingly. And with regards to resource, we do monitor resource daily with the team. We're also looking at our current restructure at the moment. We're looking at a departmental restructure to ensure that we can continue to provide this performance for South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, and to make sure that we've got the right people in the right posts at the moment, and also to future-proof the service and look at our current structure as opposed to how we look how we go forward. So as well as we've got McLeod coming down the line, there's other projects, Matthews, for example. So we're looking at and also doing a recruitment exercise where we're looking to go out for another 5 administrators within the section. And those administrators will be trained on fire work and local government work. So I just wanted to mention that with a view to obviously resource. We need the people in the right jobs with the right knowledge to be able to provide that service to you. So I just wanted to let you know that we were doing that with a view to maintaining service for this and other projects going forward. Okay, so looking at our member self-service stats. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware of our member self-service provision. So this is a service that we open up to your firefighter members, your members of the pension scheme, and it's an online service for them, so they can log on, set up a secure password, and they can then go on and check their personal details and run estimates. And we're really pushing this, and we have been doing over the last few years, for our preferred method of communication with our members. It allows us to communicate quickly and securely and provide that information to them rather than wait for the post, especially recently with the postal strikes. It's allowed us to communicate with our members quickly. So we monitor our uptake. So you can see from the table that we've got 85% of your scheme 90, which is your 92 scheme, and then 46% of your 2006 scheme memberships signed up for that service. And we continue to monitor that service as well. We link in regularly with our software provider over the service's capabilities, performance, and we're also heavily involved with future development of that software. We do try and take as much feedback from our members on that service and feed it back into our software providers. And a number of our team actually sit on user groups where ideas are shared by us and other funds that administer fire schemes to therefore enable these services to be the best they can for the fire service users. There have been no formal complaints to report this period. And since our last meeting, we've issued our deferred and active member annual benefit statements prior to the statutory deadline as required by legislation of the 31st of August. So our deferreds went out on the 22nd of August and our actives went out on the 23rd of August. So we hit that statutory deadline. Since these meeting papers were prepared, we've actually issued all our pension saving statements. So pension saving statements, we have to issue those in accordance with HMC regulations to anyone who has breached the annual allowance in a tax year. So these statements have gone out to any active firefighters who have breached the annual allowance for 21-22. So those statements are with those individuals now, and we were starting to receive the queries and helping the members deal with the information and their next steps at the moment. So we're getting calls through to the help desk and through that email box that I referred to before. But like I say, we're helping individuals. We can't advise, but we can help with next steps and instructions as much as we possibly can. Immediate detriment cases continue to be processed, and as I said, we continue to work closely with community team on who these are and delivery times for these. So these are very labour intensive. I would say we've looked at it and we guesstimate on average it takes us a day to process one of these cases. We don't have the software to be able to process these cases, so they are being done manually, and dummy records are being created on our systems to be able to provide those members with the full range of options available to them. We will, once legislation is laid in October 2023, have to go back and revisit all these cases, and a caveat is provided to members who are getting these figures explaining that. And as well as, like I said, we continue to work closely with Kim and her team. Coming up, we now, as well as the immediate detriment cases, now the remedy is, well, the legislation is due to be laid in October 2023. We need to work closely together on getting the data in for all active members now, not just the members who are retiring, so that we can then implement that legislation. So we've got a meeting booked in coming up on the 10th of November, so where we will look at how we get the data from yourselves to us so that we can make sure that we provide your firefighters with correct options around which schemes going forward, so that we have all the accurate data regarding hours and pay in the two schemes. So we'll continue to do that. So that was our key admin activities over the last few months. Does anybody have any questions before moving on?
There you go.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that.
Okay.
With regards to the member self-serve and the maybe the annual statements too, do they currently, I think I know the answer here, do they currently take into account any remedy period through the MacLeod judgment? No.
No.
And if they don't, do they plan to be adjusted so that after October 23 that they will take that into account? Yes. So
we attend the Local Government Fire Association run a fortnightly coffee morning with updates. So the protection, in response to your first point, so the projections for protected members, so statements this year were based on the situation as at the 31st of March 2022, so didn't take into account any remedy. So unprotected members, so members who were in the original schemes, the legacy schemes, they didn't have any projections going forward because we knew, and that was sort of the guidance from the LGA and through our software companies. But going forward, what will happen, and I'm not sure what will happen next year and the year after, but going forward, as a part of the remedy and the regulations coming in, there will be what they're calling remedial service statements being issued. So these will include legacy and reform benefits and instructions for elections and what members will have to do and when. So they will provide both sets of benefits going forward. So within the regulations, these have to be provided within 18 months after that legislation being laid. So we're looking at April 2025 for those what they're calling remedial service statements to be issued then. So going forward annually, members will have options of the legacy benefits and the reformed benefits.
Thank you.
Alison?
Yeah, thanks. So thank you very much, Catherine. That's really helpful. 2 questions from me. On the self-service stats, so the scheme FIR active, is that the number of people in the 2015 scheme currently, did you say?
So these are, so 2003 is 2006. And members who've transitioned over to, so your tapered members in 2006, and the scheme 90 and 92 members and your transition members. I do need to go and pick up where your 2015 members, your only members are.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I guess for next time, it would probably be handy to have 2015 figures in. And then if we need to do a bit of a campaign to increase the number of self-service members, perhaps we could work with the FBU on doing that once we've got those figures.
Yeah.
So that's my first question. And the other one was on the deferred member annual benefit statements. Is it a statutory requirement to issue benefit statements for deferred members? I'm asking with a bit of a personal interest here because I have to request my deferred statement from my previous public sector employer, and I have to put in an annual written request. So it's just really is it a statutory requirement for them to issue?
I think it's statutory within the local government regulations. Right. I will have to double check. I imagine it is if we're doing it. I imagine it is. So I will go and check. But it'll be per scheme rather than per industry. Right. So depending on your previous circumstances, maybe different rules.
Oh no, that's fine. Don't go checking. I'm happy with that. If it's dependent on the scheme requirements, then that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do any other members want to raise anything? No, I can't see anybody. Right, thank you very much for that, Catherine. The recommendations are that members of the local pension board note the performance data included at Appendix 1 attached to this report. I'm prepared to move that. Have I got a seconder?
Seconder.
Right, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Catherine, for that very good report.
Chair, there's a second part of the recommendation as well.
Did you say something?
Yeah, there's a second recommendation within the report.
Where?
So there was an Appendix 1 and the Appendix 2.
Oh, yeah. I can't find that.
Hang on, which page you on?
Appendix 2 is the membership self-service statistics.
On page.
I'm working on this paper copy.
17, page 10.
Oh, it is not in the right. Yeah,
It's not in there, is
no,
it?
it's not in the front one.
Yeah.
But it's in the second. So.
Sorry about this, everybody.
No, that's our fault.
Oh, right.
Yeah, there are two.
Right, there is 2 recommendations, and I'll go to the second one. That members note the relevant pension administrative overview and update included in Appendix 2 attached to the report. Sorry about that, it wasn't included in the front bit. So I will move that, and I will ask somebody else to second it. Got a seconder?
Second, Scar.
Second that.
Okay.
someone seconded that.
Right, we'll move on. Right, on to item number 6 now, which is the firefighters' pensions, redeem rule, age discrimination. Alison will be delivering this.
Thank you, Chair. So just a couple of updates from me. The report, it will look very familiar to you in that it's what I've done is I've extended the original report that we shared with you at the last meeting, but just to highlight some new aspects to the report. In paragraph 2.7, which hopefully if you've got a hard copy or an online copy is page 24. So if you can flick ahead to page 24, paragraph 2.7 confirms that we've had our accounts audited, and in the accounts we've made reference to the work that we've been doing on immediate detriment cases. The accounts have been given a clean bill of health. And I'm just going to look across to Geraint and Chris in case they wanted to say anything further on that point, because I know that they've been working closely with the auditors on this.
I don't know. Chris, is there anything wrong?
Only really to confirm what Alice said. Basically, the auditors were aware that there were category 1s in there, fully aware of the circumstances and the basis of settlement, and they've not queried that at all. I think it was fairly clear that we had legal backing to make the payments. The only question was about the funding, and they've not raised any issues about that either at the moment.
Thank you, Chris. And then just to take you on to the appendix, which is your page 27, just to confirm the number of cases that we have processed, and this is forward looking to November because of course our firefighters have to give us 3 months notice on retirement. So there's an update on the number of cases. We are one of the few fire and rescue services in the UK processing immediate detriment cases. So, you know, thanks to Kim and her team, and also Catherine and her team for working so closely together on these and processing, which is the right thing to do for our people. The only other thing I wanted to mention was we are in the final throes of purchasing a calculator, which I think may help our firefighters understand what their benefits would look like upon retirement. What the calculator will do, it's not an actual figure, it's an indicative figure. So there may be things that have happened in a firefighter's career, such as taking unpaid leave, that would impact on the figures, but it does give a good estimate of what the retirement pension figures look like for them. We're trying the issues for us at the moment is we're trying to work out where we put the GAD modeler from a technical ICT perspective. So we're working with our ICT colleagues on where it should be placed. It will be available for active members, so deferred members, so people who have left or retired won't be able to use the calculator. It is only for people in service at the moment. So we're hoping that we should have that live in the next few months. Fingers crossed, if all the stars align and the ICT technical solutions work. But just to give you an update on that, because that's another piece of our toolkit for our people to understand what their benefits look like. So those were the updates I wanted to share in terms of that report. Does anybody have any questions?
See anybody?
No, yeah, no, could I just welcome the modeler and encourage that to be implemented as soon as possible, because some of the feedback that I'm getting from scheme users as they go through the retirement process is the the lack of information is a challenge for them. I understand that our pensions department are doing everything that they can do, but some of them are being asked to make decisions, for example, on how they wish to pay a breach of the annual allowance, whether that be through scheme pays or out of pocket, prior to having any indication of what their figures are going to be. So these decisions are hard to make if you don't have an outline understanding of what your pension is going to be. So the model, as soon as possible, I think, will help to solve that.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to raise anything? No, hopefully I got this right now. There is only one recommendation, but members note the content of the report. So I'm quite happy to move that, and somebody else will second.
Give a second. Yeah.
And thank you, Alison, for that.
Thank you.
Right, we move on now to item number 7, which is an update report, which is going to be presented verbally by Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this was an update from the latest Scheme Advisory Board of Wales. There are a number of updates, so I'm just going to romp through these and then happy to take any questions at the end. So the main areas that I wanted to just share with you, the first area that we discussed at SARB was around the SCAPE discount. So those of you that have been around pensions for a long time will understand that this is used to value public service pension schemes, and it is used to set the employer contribution rates. There is a piece of work going on centrally, I understand. So English government are looking at SCAPE as a methodology, and I believe that they are looking at reviewing the methodology. So there may be changes to the way it works in the future, but the main sort of focus of discussion at SARB Wales was that UK Gov, so English governments, have issued a consultation on the SCAPE discount rate, and that was issued in June 21. It also included something around the methodology for setting SCAPE. But my understanding of that is, and the discussion at SARB was, we're still waiting news on the outcome of that consultation, and there was further news expected this autumn. Of course, with the government sort of setting mini budgets and the like, I'm not sure whether this autumn is still going to be the time frame for that, and it's probably a bit lower on the agenda.
So hold your breath.
So yeah, so there's an expectation that there'll be more news about SCAPE and the methodology this autumn, but that's as much as I know at this point.
Could I just ask what may be some of the possible outcomes of any changes around SCAPE, or we're not at that point yet? That's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. I'll have a look.
There is online on gov.uk, you can see the consultation documents that have been issued back in June of last year. So I would probably need to point you in that direction.
That's fine.
That's right.
It's a very technical paper.
Yes. The other topic discussed at SARB was the retrospective scheme rules. So Catherine, you just talked and touched on these. So discussion around, you know, what do the scheme rules, what are they likely to look like? As we know, things like interest rates are going to come into that mix. And there are a set of documents called PDDs, policy directional documents, I think is the long name for those. They have been developed by HM Treasury, but they are very generic, so they don't apply necessarily to firefighter pension scheme rules. So Welsh Government have picked these up and are now working through them to try and Welsh schemify them. They have set up an informal working group, and I believe that one had met just before, or was due to meet around SARB.
There's been one meeting,
yes. So Kim is on that group for us. But what they have said is there will be a formal consultation issued in January, and they've been quite specific around the date, 31st of January next year. And that consultation will close April 2023. So that's on the retrospective scheme rules, which will pull in all the stuff around interest rates and everything else that you know would need to be clarified as part of putting right the age discrimination aspects. So that was retrospective scheme rules. Two other areas, Matthews and O'Brien. You will hear this being called Matthews if you're in England and O'Brien in Wales, but we'll refer to it Matthews O'Brien in future. So what this is about, it's an entitlement for it relates to part-time workers' rights, so it affects our on-call firefighters. And there was an exercise that was done, I think, post 2000,
15-16, the exercise was done, yeah, retrospectively applied back to July 2000.
So what Matthews O'Brien does, it widens the scope, so anything prior to 2000. What it does mean, and I think this will be a challenge for most organisations having to apply this, is that, you know, what records do organisations keep currently that date prior to 2000? Some of the discussion in SARB was around how will we get that data, have organisations still got that data? If they haven't, what could they rely on to evidence service prior to 2000? Some of those pieces of evidence might include bank statements. Again, I don't know if people keep bank statements prior to 2000, but that you can see the challenges around implementing and addressing O'Brien in Wales. So likely timeframes on O'Brien, Welsh Government talked about introducing the regulations in October 23. So you can see there will be a parallel to MacLeod. So there will be MacLeod and O'Brien being implemented at the same time, which is, as Catherine just alluded to, the need to shore up resources and, you know, a requirement to make sure we've done all our due diligence in order to make that happen. And Welsh Government talked about an O'Brien consultation starting in April 2023. So next year is going to be the year of consultations and addressing age discrimination and part-time worker regs. A lot happening. The other thing they talked about, which was the final update I wanted to give, was the valuation on pensions and the cost cap arrangements. And they said that there's likely to be movement between January and March 2023. So they talked about breaches. If there is a breach of cost cap, SARB will need to discuss it. So what SARB do is they talk about if there is a breach of cost cap, and I'm not an expert on cost cap itself, so Chris may be able to come in a sec, but if there is a breach, SARB gets to talk about this and decide next steps and who picks up the breach, because there's likely to be cost implications. The SCAPE rate usually forms part of the autumn or spring budget arrangements, and the date of the next employer rate change is likely to be April 2024. So I don't know if there's anything more you can add on that, Chris, from a technical SCAPE explanation.
Not a great deal without going into an awful lot of detail about what SCAPE is, which I don't think is kind of appropriate at this moment in time. It's a technical rate which the government uses to value pension schemes. And last time it occurred, obviously they were trying to ensure that any effects of it were backed out of the valuation process and didn't end up falling to be costs paid by employers or employees. And I'm sure a similar discussion will take place again this time. What happened last time was the authority ended up receiving additional grant money from Welsh Government to offset the costs of effectively the contributions into the scheme resulting from the SCAPE change. And I would hope the same thing happens again if it goes the same way. Clearly that's down to central government and Welsh Government to resolve.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to ask any further questions, Wellesley?
Go on, I'll stick with this. Me asking. Yeah, so there are significant risks, right, with having to deal with MacLeod and O'Brien
Yes.
at the same time.
Yes,
That's
from a
okay.
resource point of view.
Yeah.
Both organisations, yes. Just to add with the O'Brien, once the legislation comes into place, they've indicated at the end of next year, organisations nationally then have 18 months to undertake and complete the exercise.
Okay. And then just to further my understanding with regards to SCAPE and the revaluation of the costs, or what we just discussed at the end there, you know, is this kind of along the lines of the interest rates are quite high, and so pensions are revalued at CPI, which increases the cost of them, and then there's a cost cap mechanism that can be passed on to, you could increase contributions by members or by services, right? Is that kind of what we're talking
Yes.
about? Because my understanding was that there was currently a previous underspend on the pensions nationally that was still going through a bit of a legal case, but I'm not sure if we're aware of this. Are we? No.
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 No, okay.
No.
I'll have to check that, and maybe I'll send something through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing else to add?
Nope.
Thank you very much. I don't envy your task whatsoever. I think you're going to be drowning under consultation. Okay, thank you very much, Alison. Right, we can move on now to item number 8, which is the publications, updates, information, which is a standard issue. So I don't know whether Alison's going to take us through.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we said that we would take you through any points of note in future in regards to the publications. So I've got a list of about 10 or so areas that I was just going to flag with you and take you through those. So just to pick up on the discussion that we've had around O'Brien, I'm just going to check the page number. Page number 33. So in your document, this is page number 35, hopefully, and it's towards the bottom of that page. So we've just talked about Matthews, O'Brien, and Kim, just to give you a bit more information on the work that we've done on this. This just shares a request to supply some data to English Home Office. So what we have to bear in mind is these bulletins are issued by the Local Government Association, which is an English-based, UK-based organisation, UK Gov. So what generally happens is Welsh Government tend to replicate the actions in these documents. So just to confirm that on a Welsh scale that Kim and the team have been working with Welsh Government and sharing data in the run-up to this other O'Brien-Matthews exercise. So just wanted to highlight that to you. Page 36 is on my document, but I think it may have switched on yours, so I'm just going to move to. Okay, it's on page 38 on your document, which is the FPS English SARB updates, member benefits illustrations. This was the work that LGA and also Welsh Government did with a company called Barnett Waddington, and this was around sharing member benefit illustrations for different categories of staff in the run-up to their retirement. So we issued the same set of illustrations that were Welshified, so they were adjusted to reflect the Welsh fire schemes, and these updates were in your last LPB pack, I recall. So just again to show the parity around the work that's going on in England and also in Wales. The other thing that I just wanted to point out to you, the SARB response to Home Office consultation on remedy, which is flagged towards the bottom of the same page, so page 38. So SARB responded to the Home Office on behalf on the remedy arrangements, and I'll flag another update further on in this under this report, which will share some links to some letters that have gone back and forth between Home Office, Treasury, just to give you an update on the conversations that are happening there. Just to show you also early resolution service that the pensions regulator have deployed, and I think this has been an aspect, and it's on the top of page 40, the pensions regulator offer an early resolution service. Now, I don't think in my tenure here that we've ever, or the pensions regulator have ever imposed that arrangement on us. So it looks as though there's a sort of an early look at what the dispute is, and they bring together a panel to make a call on the dispute itself. But just to flag that with you, because there's a fact sheet attached to it, and it's probably worth you as a board having a look at that fact sheet and being cited on it.
Sorry, do you know, or it'll probably say in the fact sheet, right, does going to that early resolution preclude you from going further then to the full ombudsman? Don't know, we'll have a look.
Yes, it's worth having a look. I would imagine early resolution comes with a decision. So
I don't know, I've not come across that before. What I anticipated is them giving some useful information on when you're approaching your scheme manager, on maybe explaining what your dispute is about, how then to potentially take forward your dispute, and those sorts of things. I haven't actually double checked the fact sheet, but I would be extremely surprised if that's a service that you're invited to use prior to running through the scheme manager's IDRP process in the first instance anyway.
Okay.
Although I'll definitely take a look at that. I hadn't spotted that.
it looks like they bring together the parties. So I've just pulled up the fact sheet, and it says if both parties agree how to resolve the complaint, this will close the case and we'll take no further action.
It sounds very much in my reading to be sort of an out of court settlement type arrangement to avoid cases going further. If you can bring it to a conclusion at an earlier stage, whether that's what their intention is, I'm not sure.
It does, on a quick skim, looks as though if the complaint doesn't get resolved and progresses to a formal investigation, there is a new independent investigation commissioned by the adjudicator. So yeah, probably worth just having a look at that from our own board learning perspective. Okay, what else did I want to flag with you? So annual allowance charges is on the next page.
I was just going to say about on the same page about the combating pension scams. That's a worry,
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
isn't it? There's so much going on at the moment, isn't there?
Yes.
So hopefully we'll be on top of that.
Yes.
I can jump in there if
Yeah.
you like. So yes, definitely. And in fact, driving in this morning, there was a piece on the radio about pension scams. Luckily, from a public service point of view, you cannot now transfer a public service pension out of the public service to a private company that's undertaking the scam. So we are protected somewhat from that. Legislation came into play, I want to say 2014-ish. Prior to that, you could actually take your pension and put it anywhere. So there are those public sector pensions already in play, if you like. That'll safeguard. But again, there are a lot of public sector members that may have a small private pension running alongside, and it's there that education can take place. Yeah.
So because over the years, a lot of people have lost out on it, haven't they?
Yeah.
I can remember the steel workers, a lot of them were persuaded to come out of their pension scheme, and it was a disaster, and they lost thousands and thousands. Yeah. So thank you both.
Yeah, sorry, can I just come and just reiterate sort of what Kim says? But as a fund, we've actually signed up to this pledge with the pensions regulator. So just for you to be reassured that any updates that are coming out of the pensions regulator through the LGA, we as a fund are keeping on top of and making sure that especially our colleagues who deal with incoming phone calls up to date of what these sort of red flags or amber flags are to try and prevent any scams.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so page 41 was the next thing I was just going to flag with you. Annual allowance charges, there's an update there. And just to let members know, we are running a workshop on the 7th of October.
We ran
a workshop, sorry. we ran a workshop on the 7th of October with an external company. Kim, I don't know if you can give us any clues in terms of updates or member attendance.
I think the attendance was relatively low. We did have enough interest to run a course, but it was in single digits. It's an online delivery, and it just targets those that may encounter an annual or lifetime allowance breach, both purely from their role in the fire service or indeed because it stretches across all of your pensions inside and outside of fire. So individuals may have personal interests. And it was delivered by a company just explaining the principles of annual allowance, I believe, how it's calculated and the impact then on the individuals, and then going forward, how it's triggered really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just trying to keep up on that because it is some queries been raised around the annual allowance with myself, which we worked on and got some answers to. But it talks about some changes in the rules on annual allowance quite recently, right, in 2022. What material effect did that have? Because I'm reading through it and trying to understand it.
Catherine, are you best placed to answer Gal's query around the most recent changes?
Yeah, I think the recent changes around timescales, which are coming out on the back of McLeod and Remedy. There's no actual material changes to the process, the allowances, the calculations. The changes that have recently been allowed are allowing. So if you think of Remedy being implemented, we're having to go back and revisit people's pensions input, so their pension savings from tax years from 14, 15 onwards. So if you're changing the scheme, you're potentially changing your pension savings. So the existing regulations only allowed you to go back, I think it was to the last tax year and make any amendments. Whereas obviously if you're having to then go back and look at Remedy over 14, 15 onwards, so 8 years of Remedy, then those time frames around when you could pay tax and when you couldn't had to be amended to allow that Remedy to be implemented. So I'm not aware of any material changes to how we calculate the input or the limits, but there have been changes which have been covered in previous FPS bulletins around the timeframes in which you can go back and then pay tax.
Oh, Catherine, sorry. Where we remedy someone who's in an immediate detriment case, we go back and essentially put them on a different pension for 7 years if they take that, right? Which in essence is an increase in value in their overall pension. Is that increase in value like applied at the end at the spot where you've changed it, or is it spread back across those 7 years? Did my question make any sense?
Yes. So we have to recalculate every single year. So if we're looking for somebody whose Remedy period is for the full 8 years, we have to go back and, like I say, with the data provided by Kim and her team on different pays, possibly different service, which doesn't really happen. It's more around pay definitions. We have to look at each single year individually and determine whether they would have exceeded the annual allowance in that year and then take the appropriate action. So this could be where you're getting some queries around scheme pays, because it's where we're having to go back and say, well, okay, if you will elect for legacy benefits, then you would have exceeded the annual allowance in a certain year. Therefore, we are duty bound to deal with the subsequent tax charges that incurs.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Okay.
Okay. Final couple of areas. So page 47, hopefully, just a flag that there's an AGM happening on fire pensions in London, 25th and 26th of October. I think Kim, you and some of the team maybe attending that.
Discuss that.
Okay. So we will try and get some officers to that AGM session. Those are quite useful. I've attended those in the past. And then perhaps we'll bring an update here if we can get attendance there. Page, just going to flag, I need to check your page numbers. So it's around 7, if you move to the 70s, I just wanted to flag with you the open letter that's gone between the sub-groups and the Treasury. I'm just trying to find it on my version. 1 second.
Page 75.
Oh, thank you. So bottom of page 75 is, these are quite useful to review because they're open letters between the chair of the SAB England and the Treasury.
Whoever's in charge at the moment.
Yes, who's in charge of the Treasury at the minute. But yes, so this was around, the Home Office issued some guidance for us to start processing immediate detriment cases, and it's around some questions as to why this was done and the impact on things like interest rates and tax and everything else. So they're quite useful reads just to understand, the kind of what's happening at the centre on immediate detriment, and to, just to further your own sort of understanding of where things are. The other one I just wanted to flag, which is on the next page, which is around the pensions dashboard, starting at the bottom of that page, so 77. There have been a number of consultations now on the pensions dashboard arrangements, and it looks like, I think, fire may be at the back end of the onboarding arrangements, because for a few letters that have been sent in to just share that, with everything else going on McLeod and O'Brien, then onboarding onto a pensions dashboard wouldn't give confidence necessarily to members who are looping into that dashboard, because the pension wouldn't be accurate. So I think there are probably some more consultations to happen, but there have already been a few. So I think,
can I just jump in there? So initially, in the first draft of communications, I think it was suggested that fire as a group would onboard round about October 23, maybe January 24, which nationally was really unpalatable, given McLeod, O'Brien, all the rest of it. I can see Catherine smiling there. But with the support of the LGA and feedback from, I think, a lot of the fire and rescue services nationally, government have taken on board those complications, if you like, and the resource challenges. And I think they're now initially suggesting that it could start in September 24-ish. But I think that's still yet to be really, really finalised. But at least we've managed to push it forward a considerable amount of time, which will help everybody. Is that your view of that, Catherine?
Yeah, I need to go back and check where we are for fire, but with local government, so it may be similar, is that there'd be 2 stages almost where people can go into the dashboard and just see, I think it was matching data and value data. So you could go onto the dashboard in the first deadline, and then 6 months later, I think it, like you say, Kim, I think it was October 24, where you could go in and you could be matched. And so you could find your pension providers, but then that value data, as in how much have I actually got? I think there was a bit of a leeway time then again to give us a bit more breathing space, ran through to April 25, I think, off the top of my head. Sorry, I'd have to go away and double check, but definitely for LG, those 2 bits of information were being separated.
Thank you. And that's as much as I wanted to share with you. We'll continue to share those updates and highlights in future, if that's helpful, because I think it probably does generate a bit of a discussion and a debate. But that's as much as I wanted to flag in terms of the updates through the bulletins.
At the bottom of page 79, I'm just wondering what announcements are going to be made today.
Pension, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything's changing within hours, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pensions, great.
So we wait with bated breath to see what's going to happen. Right, thank you very much for that. Oh, now we move on to item number 9, which is a training session for members.
So for this training session, what I thought we would do is we've just had emailed to you the training event pack following the South Wales training session that was held a week or so ago. And what I thought, rather than us prepare a training session, I think it probably would be really helpful if members started to work through the documents that you've had emailed. So they should be in your inbox as we speak. If you do have access to your inbox now and can shout if you haven't had them, because I can see they have been sent around. In that email, there is a link. And if you have a look at the link in particular, the training session was recorded. Claire Hay, who works for LGA, has given some really useful updates in there on McLeod. So the age discrimination work, the remedy work. There's an update on O'Brien, and there's information on the pensions dashboard as well. So what I'd like to do, if that's possible, Chair, is conclude the meeting formally, but invite members to log in and run through the training session for the next part of this meeting. So if we sort of close the meeting but let members do the training session that's been recorded and is in your inbox, what I'd ask though is, once you've done it, if you can share any reflections on that training event to myself and Kim, because I think what you will see is in the session it talks about your role as pension board members, and I think there's some things in there that we probably want to pick up, like for example there is a suggestion that we should be reviewing our main risks around pensions, and I don't want to put too much in your direction, but what I'd like you to do is have a look at the session and feedback to Kim and I any observations around, you know, are there gaps in this pension board activity that we should be putting onto the agenda. I've got a few thoughts.
It just come through.
Brilliant. Okay. So if you're happy with that, Chair, I suggest people now log into the session. We formally close the meeting, but as I say, we take the feedback as confirmation that you have used the session and run through it, and then we will bring the feedback into our next meeting's training session as the second part of the meeting.
There's no other urgent items on the agenda anyway.
No.
Yeah. So I'm quite prepared to do that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everyone happy with that approach? Yeah. Okay, right.
Is there anything on the phone?
I can't, I'm sorry, because I have to leave now at 11 o'clock to get to a hospital appointment. I'm very sorry.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Morgan. If you can just let us have back to review the session, it'd be great.
I will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Chair Councillor Norton's got a question.
Well, it's asking us for same. I won't be able to get it done now, but if I can do it in the next week and send you the notes I have of any feedback.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Right, where do we start?
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Can I log off?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all.
Yeah, it's at the moment, so if we just do the forward.
Yeah.
Program
So,
okay.
If I can just do the forward work programme just to check what's ahead on the agenda. So usual items such as key performance indicators, Catherine, for you. McLeod will do another update. Pension regulator returns. So these are returns that we shared last year, didn't we, Kim? I think they were quite helpful.
Statistics,
Yeah, an audit point of view. Publications, scheme advisory board update, and as I say, feedback from this training session will weave into a training session or an update as part of that piece the next time. So that concludes the meeting formally.
Yes.
So Chair, are you happy to close the meeting?
Yes, I'm very happy to close the meeting and move on to this session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
I think it works.
Can I update my email address because it goes to my service